and around. There we go. Let's be very thoughtful about how we use our tripods today. Hi, Paolo. How are you? Sorry, I'm still just adjusting. So I don't have my boom arm set up here yet. So we're just sort of improvising with a tripod. Hi, Janina. Hi, Dan. Hi, Irene. Irene. Hi, Jill. Hi, Box of Paint. Yay, so many people. Are you hearing the...
Yeah, playback.
Yeah. Is that coming through for other people? I can live with it, but... if you just... Yeah. Presumably, well, I guess because it's on a delay too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So seeing when it comes in. Oops, sorry. Did not mean to do that. Okay, so I got contacted just a little while ago by my favorite paint maker, Roman Szmal, who wrote me a concerned email asking what had happened because I'd been away for a while. Yes, I'm really excited to be streaming again too. So I have an assistant at the studio now. She'll be helping me with art stuff and at home. At some point, maybe I'll do a video where I properly introduce Destiny, but she's over by my side. She'll be sending me highlights from the chat as we go. I got this box then from Roman Szmal, which contains the 25 new colors. 25? 20? Many new colors. As well as one extra that is not in, yeah, so there's 20 new colors, and then there's one extra that's not actually in this release, that's just a little bonus for me. But these all with the labels are the newest release, and I believe they're listed on Jackson's already, but they are pre-order at this point.
Stephen joined, and Carlos has stopped using lately.
Well, I mean, maybe it's maybe this is the next one. Maybe you're just getting an early preview. But look, there's an orange just for you, special orange. I've not been keeping up with letting people know just what chaos my life has been recently. But I usually, with my swatches, I usually use the little stamps. They look like this. Can you tell us the name of my assistant? My assistant's name is Destiny, and she'll pop into the chat now. You can just say hello so that they see you. And hopefully it doesn't show up as Amina here.
I think I'm able to show you.
You show up as me. Well then, that's exciting. Okay, never mind. She shows up as me. Yeah, so this is my swatch binder. So I sort by pigment.
Jill says that is a glorious swatch binder.
Yeah, I am really happy with what I chose to do here. I use these stamp swatches for consistency. But right now, my whole house is under construction. So my home studio, the reason why I'm streaming from somewhere else. Part of the reason why I haven't streamed for a really long time is my whole house is under construction. My home studio is where we're storing all of the wood siding, like wall paneling that we took out of the basement that's going to go into the attic. Finish the attic space. We've got like walk-up attic. So we're going to finish that. We're going to wood. That wood is currently in storage in my home studio as we do other parts of the house. The house is a chaotic disaster. I tried to find my stamp and I could not find my stamp today. So I've faked it. So I have started writing in. It's basically the same as the stamp. And I've started filling in the details for the paints. I got about halfway through before I had to start streaming. So you are also going to get to see me hand write these little stamped swatch cards. Now, the advantage of the little improvised ones is that if you look at this stamp, it's got this pre-printed like granulation, transparency, staining, and light fastness thing. I'm not sure what they ever wanted me to do with the light fastness field. It's weird. Like, what is this 5 stars? And what am I supposed to do with them? So I've just written in what is written on the side of the swatch. Because Roman Szmal uses an 8-point scale for light fastness. It says moderate staining, moderate granulation, and semi-opaque, as opposed to like trying to fit that into here. Will you compare the new colors to the old to show any differences? I mean, I have some of the other colors. Like I have quite a collection of Roman Szmal paints. So this is all filled with Roman Szmal paints. This one is some extra, some spillover, and then I've got others that are also like I know that some of the reds kind of are because there's some been discontinued. So he's added up here because PR209 is being discontinued. But mostly these are just new colors. So they're being added to the range, not subtracting. If you want to see my reviews of the other paints that I have from Roman Szmal, I've done every paint that I have from him. I've done either a live stream or an edited video. At some point, I may try to do a broader review because I am at the point where I've got about, maybe like half the collection. He has sent me every time that there's a new release, he sends me those paints. I have purchased a couple myself with my own money. And we're working on something. I'm working on something fun with him as well, so that'll also be coming up in the news. So I'll go through these. So I got all of these paints. I won't do like a preview too much of this. If you want to see like a really nice compact preview of what these colors are, my friend Ev Bolt published a video earlier this week describing this new release in her watercolor news series, which is, I think, where a bunch of you have come in from. Thank you. He also sent me some of these paintbrushes. So he also makes paintbrushes, and so I've got these. Haven't looked too closely at them. I might try to use 1 or 2 of them for these swatches. Like maybe this size 6. I don't really have any too much information about these. It seems like they're all synthetic. So that is cool for those of you who want vegan art supplies, cruelty-free. This one seems like it might have like a bit of a reservoir situation on it, where there's a tip here, and then there's more of a reservoir, like a thicker reservoir around it. So I don't know, maybe I'll try that to start. I'm excited about these brushes as well as these paints. And yeah, I guess I'll just get started swatching.
Al says he's only here for the dog.
He's only here for the dog. Well, where's the dog? Dog's off in the distance, being a dog, being asleep. She'll probably come in and stick her face in eventually. So this first one, man, this is like every swatching video, because I'm fussy about yellows, right? And my least favorites are the nickel titanates. So I always start my swatching videos, no matter what brand and how much I love them. I'm like, oh great, this color. This is the one I'm least excited about, but the good news is it all goes uphill from here, and maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. Also, in other news, I've started up, so years and years ago, I had an Etsy shop, and then I haven't had an online shop for quite a while. And my online shop on my website is now live. And the best news is we haven't set up shipping profiles yet. So anything you order is free shipping, no matter where you are in the world. So you might want to take advantage of that before Monday. Link is in the bio or in the description. Destiny, can you top this up? It's a little low. So, yeah, so this is nickel tungsten yellow. And it's like a nickel titanate, only tungsten somewhere. And so it's going to be a very lemony, light, opaque yellow. It is listed as light fastness 8, which is the highest. So Roman Szmal he does his own testing, but he uses the blue wool scale. And he only uses paints that test 7 or 8. Now there are other paints might fade in certain circumstances. So for example, Prussian blue is sensitive to light only in combination with other compounds that are found in water. Unless you're painting with distilled water only, Prussian blue is likely to not behave as well as any manufacturer tends to say it does. And I did run a test in my own window, and it was definitely fading. Not this one, Prussian blue, but then among the other various hues in my house, it got water damaged. So that sort of invalidated the test. Anyway, this is marked as semi-opaque, medium staining, and medium granulating. Don't ever really like these milky yellows. It's very strong. Would be really nice for painting like buttery yellow flowers. It's a sort of delicate, would add a sort of dusty finish if you don't want that powerful yellow. Deirdre Schaller says that some Escoda mops use animal hair but could be considered reasonably vegan. Okay. Because they're harvested, like they're from live animals, like they're not killed for. I mean, I don't, whatever. Yeah, that's interesting. Most sable brushes are harvested from trapped or farmed animals that are killed. So, yeah. I do use sable brushes, like full disclosure. Not sables. Okay. Right. Well, yeah. None of these are sable. Like none of these are all synthetic. And I do use some synthetic brushes for specifically some kinds of details. I would rather just go through, like if I'm going to be doing a lot of scrubbing, it'll destroy any brush. So I'd rather use synthetic. I do like the water handling properties of natural hair and sable better.
Paolo asks, is that PY53?
It says PY53. No, it's PY189. So it's a unique pigment to this brand. So Roman Szmal is trying to, I think actually now he's achieved it. He's from the start, his goal was to produce the largest watercolor range, like of single pigments out of any of the other brands. And so for a while, Daniel Smith still had more range. At this point, I believe that Daniel Smith does offer more paints, but only because they have more convenient textures and things like duochromes and stuff. But in terms of single pigments, I believe that Roman Szmal now has the most in the world. And so this PY189 is a different. I'm sure that somebody still uses Daniel Smith. They are still sold. I've more or less abandoned them. I mean, to be honest, my only minor quibble with I would be like Roman if he produced paints in tubes. I keep asking. He says someday. These are only available in pans, full pans and half pans now. Although I prefer the full pans anyway. They are available only in pans. So if you prefer to work with tubes, which I do because I like refilling things and I like being able to work in a palette. I don't work from wet paint. Here, I'll move this out of the way so that this can stay here and you can still see that.
Stephen says, Scholar does, even the product of grains. And Paolo says he has shown test for his paints.
Yes, I think I saw the post with the tube. I was very, very excited that that was what was coming this time, but no. I think it's just a matter. He is really just like, he's one guy, right? They have a factory, but I think like a lot of paint companies, this is a lot of us, like a much smaller operation than it might seem from the outside. So this is wait, no, I'm painting the wrong one. I'm gonna have to, do this separately. I was looking at this and I was like, that's not right. Pretty sure I'm supposed to be painting this. Sorry, guys.
Dan says the DS paints I have been banished.
Have been banished. I haven't banished my DS paints. They are still there. I am now very, very cautious about ever mentioning if I use my Primatex, because I still have some of those too, including in some palettes that I use. And if it's there, like, and I haven't pulled it out, I'm not gonna like not use a paint that's in a palette. But I am not impressed with the business practices surrounding that. And I feel I mean, honestly, there are alternatives for every Daniel Smith paint other than the Primatex, and I'm not gonna buy the Primatex. So I don't feel the need to buy those paints. There's also like more affordable options in most cases, so just is not necessary. I do, however, still have some quinacridone gold, the real quinacridone gold variety, and that does occasionally get used and mentioned. So this is PY128. So this is an interesting pigment. It is, it's in the nickel azo family, but it's a little bit slightly more opaque than my favorite PY150, but still quite transparent. And it's a little bit more, it looks more lemony on its own. So PY150 mixes like a lemon yellow, like a greenish yellow, but it looks in Math's tone, it looks sort of brown or golden. So it tends to be classified as like more of a warm yellow if you're just looking at the Math's tone. And so that might make it confusing for some people. So I have questioned whether if I'm teaching classes, it might be easier to use something like this azo yellow. So I'm happy to hear some discussion there. Like, I know what I prefer to use. I think that's obvious. I've made it super duper clear what my favorite paint ever is. But if you were in a painting class, would you prefer to have something that looks more like how it behaves, or something that's more transparent, but then as a result looks more brownish or golden in Math's tone, even though it behaves like a greenish yellow?
Paolo asks, have you found the half pan of Quinn Gold that you misplaced?
If I found the half pan of Quinn Gold that I misplaced. Yes, I have actually. That is actually found. I have actually located all the various pans in my home studio and scattered about.
And Stephen says that looks similar to the PY110.
Looks similar
to yellow.
PY110 is much more orangey, I would say, usually. Like it's more, yeah. So this is the anthraquinone, or are you referring to this paint here? This one might be a little bit closer. Okay, I do have one of these samples. I'm going to fill it in because I accidentally put the Math's tone from here in there.
Stephen said yes, the 128.
Yeah, the 128 is definitely much more lemony, like much more greenish than the PY110, or certainly than any PY110 I've tried. But I think you have my old PY110, so assuming you're talking about the same thing. My tube of M. Graham PY110 that I gave you. P147. And so then this is, yeah, so then this is 7/8. Staining, moderately staining. And non-granulating. Okay, then let's try that. Now this one's a little bit more of that golden, like a PY110. Certainly in mass tone, we'll see how it mixes out. I think more of a gamboge hue. Of course, gamboge hue is the name of the next one. So, and I'm just putting these wrappers underneath them. I will make labels or spell out labels in a little bit, but I don't want to deal with that right now. So this is anthraquinone yellow, PY147. I don't think that I've seen this pigment anywhere else, but then again, I am not the most creative about my use of yellow pigments, so it's possible that it exists somewhere else. Can someone fill in for me here?
Dan says, I don't think I've heard of it, but my pigment knowledge has leaked out a lot.
Yeah. Have you had a tough few years too? I was just realizing, like, oh, I'm sure that things have happened in the paint world in the past 2 years. I just so that is more like a 110. I imagine that actually probably there's some like light issues here. We'll have to work on light balancing. Get some of my nice lights in here for the future, but for now we're just one step at a time. Getting started. A lot of close pigment numbered pigments. Oh, like oh, yet another azo orange or something. 64, 65, 66. I like the PY128 a lot. So do I. So do I. And it's to the point where like I'm genuinely questioning if I were to design a palette for beginner. Like I know that I'd always put PY150 over PY128 in my own palette, but if I was just designing a palette to teach a class with, like I have struggled with trying to teach using PY150 because people are like, but it's so golden. Like, yes, but it's going to mix bright greens and muted oranges. So.
That I share your PY150.
I know, and I've converted a bunch of people, haven't I? Which I'm very proud of, but I just have to wonder about what my priorities are. So this is a new gamboge hue, PY95. I feel like I've heard PY95 before. Then who knows? Maybe I've heard PY96. PY95, I'm assuming, is, however, just like one of those azo colors that's everywhere. Yes? PY 128 is also available from Rembrandt and Van Gogh, which is Van Gogh is Rembrandt's student line. So it is not unique to Roman Szmal, but it is uncommon. Okay, this PY 95 is nice. I like it. Do like me some like nice tangerine yellows. Yep, that's pretty. It's a PY 181 that I really, really like in this color range. I think I like the PY 181 better, but this is very pretty.
Bolt said, I think that one is unique to RS. I made a video about it.
Oh,
I forgot already.
I did watch your video, and I considered like taking notes. I mean, I could do my own research, or I could just make Ev do all my research for me. But then you didn't even do that. So now I'm just having you fill in for me in the chat. I do like it. It is very pretty. I like, it's got a bit of like a chromatic shift. So it looks more tangerine in mass tone. And then it shifts to more of a like pure yellow color. Warm yellow enjoyers entering the chat. I love warm yellows. Yes, I like warm yellows. I do like warm yellows. I'm very, very fussy about lemon yellows. I guess I'm fussy about yellows in general. I want my, because yellow milk is great. So especially in watercolor, if they're like sort of opaque, grosses me out viscerally. Ugh. But that's especially true with the more greenish yellows. So then now we're into oranges. Paolo's watching. Yes, 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 yes. This one's just for you. Bismuth orange, and I believe this one. Hi, Triad.
Paul says PO85.
PO86. It is like a very pure orange, slightly yellowish, quite thick, like quite a bit of mass to it, fairly opaque. And then let's see how it flows if I add some water here.
It said PO86 is also unique to RS.
Here we go. This one's a unique paint. So that's our first row. Now we're getting into reds. There's a lot of reds in this release, and I've sorted them. When I got this was all mixed up because I think he just packed it in like how it came in terms of like when the production was done, rather than in any sort of chromatic order. So I rearranged it a little, but I'm pretty sure that I have not rearranged it perfectly in chromatic order because that's difficult. These are hand painted labels, which helps, but even still, it's tough on a little thing like that. Still doesn't beat my favorite orange, but interesting color. What's your favorite orange? Audio is breaking up a bit for me. Uh-oh. Stream's a bit choppy. Huh. Okay, well that's too bad. I do have good Wi-Fi, but I am on Wi-Fi. Hi, Cyan. How are you? So this one, Pearline Scarlet. And so in mass tone, we're looking at like a candy apple here. Let's get some more of that deep, deep red in there. So as always, these are honey-based paints. They are very, very pigmented, although not to the point where they do weird clumpy granulation stuff like some other honey-based paints.
Jill's asking what color this is.
This is Pearline Scarlet. Sorry if you can't see the label on here. So it is PR 149, which I believe is sold as like Pearline Red by Schminke. I'm pretty sure I have this pigment in some palette. It is quite lovely. It's like a very slightly orangey red, I would say. But fairly neutral. If we are defining a primary as red, like red. It's fairly transparent. It says semi-transparent here. Medium staining, medium granulation, which yes, that's just Rembrandt. What is Schminke's Pearline Red then? If not, I do like Pearlines. There's a whole bunch of Pearlines here. Okay. All right. And then I have Raspberry Red. So this is it's like a bright reddish color, like maybe slightly more reddish than a Quin Rose. Pearline Dark Red is PR 178. Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking about. 149. So where do I have a PR 149 from? Did they used to have a Pearline Red that wasn't a Pearline Dark Red? No other reds. Okay. All right. I think it was discontinued. Okay, so that might be it. I'm like way out of the loop on what's been available in the market in the past, call it 3 years. So I have some serious catching up to do. if I remember their leaflet. Okay, that makes sense because I'm pretty sure that I have this color, this pigment from Schminke. But it may well be this color, this pigment from 6 years ago. And no longer available. Ah. I'm pretty sure I really quite liked it even. Okay. Next, we have this raspberry red, PR 272. That sounds like a color code that I've heard before, but is not in my palette. Is that a unique color, or is this something that's widely available from elsewhere? PR 272. I mean, I'll also be able to check from a swatch binder. I have dot cards from various brands that I ordered years ago that I haven't dealt with yet. So my swatch binder still has lots of stuff that I can add to it over the next little while.
Dan says Jackson's have a sale on oil paint, and F says they have a dark red PR 170.
Jackson's have on oil paint. PR 170?
Yes, had though.
Had. Okay, that's cool. I have recently got myself some oil paint. I went to a residency at Toronto Island earlier this year. It was a group residency centered around climate change. And one of the other artists there is a really, really skilled tips and pours, which I was really grateful for. And so I just recently got myself a bunch of oil paints. I really like watercolor. I'll probably always be a water, but it was fun. Okay, so raspberry red is, it's got like a bit of a pinky undertone, but a really bright, bold red tone. It's got a little bit of granulation showing, which I think is, so what I appreciate about, a thing that I appreciate about Aquarius is that some of this granulation, like this Perylene Scarlet granulation and this raspberry red granulation, I suspect is actually not granulation in the traditional sense of its large individual pigment particles sedimenting out. It's clumping from polar reactions with the water and the other stuff in the water. Roman Szmal is aware of this effect, and he manages it, and he declares it. I mean, he calls it granulation, but he has paints where he's deliberately done this, and he'll just say they're granulating. But he's aware that that's a thing that high pigment load synthetic organics can do. Hi, Gobbler, how are you? I still owe you a lesson and a painting. You'll get that shipped on Monday. Perylene Vermilion. So this is Perylene Vermilion as opposed to Perylene Scarlet. PR PR 123, and I don't think I have seen that pigment code before. But again, we are talking about what I remember of pigments from, oh gosh, ages past, so. I'll have to reacquaint myself with my swatch binder.
Steven says he's not familiar with any of the pigments.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Roman Szmal does have, again, I think already with the last release, he had the largest range of single pigment colors. At this point, I can't think of any specific pigment that is still in production that is available from another brand, but not Roman Szmal. Like, there are things that are not in production, but that some brands are still making paint of because they have a stash, like PO48, quinacridone, rust, quinacridone, whatever the other.
Gabor says, yeah, long time no see on my end. Life got complicated lately.
My life got so complicated the last few years. It's just been a roller coaster. Health issues, and then my main drain out of my house exploded. We had some major insurance adventures. Now we're in a major whole home renovation. Yes, there are a lot of paralenes in this release. So this is a quinacridone warm scarlet. I'm always confused by names like scarlet and vermilion and like, okay, what's the difference? I know colors, but I don't necessarily know names for colors. Maybe because the quinacridones are being actively discontinued. Yeah, so I think the production on quinacridones is only affordable if they're being used by car manufacturers, like they're used in car paint. But I think that they're not affordable to make. They have to be made at this huge scale to be remotely affordable, so then they just sort of disappear off the market as soon as people aren't buying gold cars, which is really too bad. And maybe we just need to, create a demand for gold cars so that we can have quinacridone gold paint again. To a huge extent, I feel like I've gotten over my lust of like specifically discontinued pigments. Like the moment something's discontinued, like, oh my god, I need it. I do have quite a bit of Quin Gold. I do have a stash of Thio Indigo, which I quite enjoy, but I actually don't use very much. Okay, so this one is described as transparent. And I imagine that when it dries, it will show up as transparent. But the interesting thing about it is as it's applying, it's got this really milky quality to it. Like, do you see this in the pan? Right. Is that visible? It looks like a strawberry milkshake in here.
CJ said Paul Rubens has PR 123 as scarlet.
Paul Rubens. Okay, yes, Paul Rubens is one of those brands that I have trouble keeping track of. It seems like they change their formulations constantly. I for a long while was trying to get their, what was it, like Peacock Blue for a while that they were making with PB17 long after Holbein had stopped making PB17 paint. I wanted to get a hold of it because it's the closest hue angle to cyan. So, you know, just for the sake of. Oh, hi, Amber. You look like girl. Vivian. Do you think that videos are about you? You're gonna have to come up here if you want the video to be about you. Baby bug. Okay, and then this is Perylene Red Deep, thank you. PR 179. 179, 149, 179, 149. Am I just getting confused? And I could have sworn I've seen a 149 before in my palette. I thought it was Schminke. However, let's take a look at this 179. This one's also doing that milky thing. That's fascinating. I've never seen a Perylene do that milky thing. It's also got a bit of a drag to it. Like, I wonder if that's a binder separation that's happening at the very top. Maybe that's it. Maybe further down this will be more even. It's definitely got like quite a bit of that like coagulating thing. For those of us who have an aversion to paint that looks like blood. This looks like blood. It's also interestingly listed as non-granulating, but not only my swatch, but also the label has this clumpy thing. So, I mean, just take that as it is. Roman Szmal does disclose that some of their paints do a granulation thing that's clumping. But this one is listed as non-granulating, and it's definitely the most textured of any I've seen so far, both on my swatch and on the label. Now this one is very deliberately granulating, so this is something else. Swap this one. So this is a paint that's been a bunch. Okay, I'm gonna move these over so that we can keep as much of this to show as possible. Hush, hush. Hush, 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 hush. Okay. You're very loud. Why are you very loud? Is it because you want to be on camera? Ember would like to be on camera. Hello, Ember. This is Ember. Ember is a service dog / very loud creature. Smaller under all the fluff than she looks. Yeah. Yeah. You're big. Mostly the fluff parts. Is there fluff in the brains? You got fluff for brains? Okay, I'm gonna put this back here. Ember. Hush, hush. Hush, hush, Ember. Ember, quiet. Down. Settle. Good girl. Good settle. Ember likes being the center of attention. And so there's talking happening that doesn't involve dogs, and so sometimes she feels the need to cut in. Good girl, Ember. Good girl. Okay, so this Aquarius Violet was a much hyped release. It was trialed, given as samples at a few watercolor festivals, I believe. The original name was Plum. Now it is sold as Aquarius Violet. It's got a whole bunch of pigments in it. Sorry, and this is where I'm going to have to start making my own little labels for these things. So this is, what have we got here? PB29, PV19, PR255. So nothing terribly unusual in terms of the pigments in it, although it does have a PB29, which will add a nice bit of granulation, and I believe they've chosen a particularly granulating ultramarine. And it separates out into those three colors, because the PV19 is also much lighter than the PR255, so it sediments out and it creates a very interesting pattern. I'm going to try to get this quite thick on one side to get like a proper mass tone, and then on the other side I'm going to give it just a little bit more water to hopefully show a little bit more of the texture. Good girl, Ember. Good settle. Good girl.
Alice's pen is dark.
It is very dark in mass tone, and then it does fun things out in water. Let's just get some dots in here and see how that goes. Let that do its thing for a moment while I prepare the next one. So next one is, oh boy. So I love these paints, and generally I prefer honey paints, because in the winter where I live it gets quite cold, and our indoor air, because we have to heat it, ends up very dry. So in the winter we can end up with paints that behave like rocks if they don't have enough moisture in them. So honey paints don't do that. On the other hand, in the summer here, it's really humid. And so this being summer, these are all quite sticky. Which I don't mind too much, but is definitely like while trying to pull these in and out of their little holder is a bit challenging. So you can see this separation starting to happen here. I'm just going to let it keep doing its thing. It really does look like the bloom on a plum. So I totally understand the name. That makes tons of sense to me. This one here that I'm doing now is called Strontium Violet. It is available from Schminke as Cobalt Violet Hue. Strontium Violet, of course, is a much more accurate to how it's made name. And I believe I saw somewhere that Lucas also makes this pigment. And in fact, that it may have been originally developed at Lucas, which is interesting. Like, I was not aware that Lucas was manufactured. In fact, that's very uncommon with art supply.
I've said also Lucas, I was told.
Yes.
And I forgot Lucas as well. I got some ones from Germany.
So I have Lucas paints that I got a few years ago. They were on sale at a local store. I was going to run a workshop where I was providing materials. So I got Lucas. They were very, very, very cheap. My impression was that they had some of them seemed to have some kind of filler in them. Like they just didn't go quite as far as other artist grade paints. They just had like a brush feel, like there was something into most of them. They did like a weird speckling on paper too. Like as though they had some silica, maybe? Optical brighteners. So I haven't really purchased Lucas for myself since, but they are very, very affordable. So it's the sort of thing, like if you're going to be using a whole lot of paint, they're pretty good. They're just maybe not quite as... All right, let's hold this up so you can see this start to separate out, and it really, really does look like the bloom on a plum. That difference from mass tone to... So that's pretty cool. Very much like an effects paint, not something that you want to be like mixing even more than it already is mixed. You could pretty much use this paint when you want this specific effect, which is pretty cool. And Strontium Violet now. Sorry, get you adjusted here. It's that ferro pigments. So sorry, is Lucas? I'm now curious because, like, I suppose it's entirely possible for a pigment manufacturer to have a side business in paint making. My understanding was just the costs involved in producing pigments are like so dwarf the turnaround of any artist paint production that there's no, like, there is no, in modern society, there's no no paint manufacturers really, you know, doing double duty as their own pigment makers. Although if there are, that would be cool. Like, other than people experimenting, right? You have the occasional indie paint maker who goes and collects their own earth pigments and grinds them down and what have you. And then you have whatever is going on with the Primatex, which is, I don't think it's what they say it is, but if it does, if they do in fact contain any of the what they say they are, then presumably they have to be at least coordinating that. Okay. All right, so here we have a.
He says lies.
So I see that in the 2 years I've been a ghost, Daniel Smith has not redeemed their reputation, huh? I think I like this one better than the Schminke one. It is much stronger. It has a deeper mass tone.
Anna says hi.
Hi. Yeah, this is so strong. And like, I barely, like, it came right up. It re-wets really easily. Which, like, given that I had the Schminke one from a tube, and I think I originally swatched it from the tube, that's pretty impressive. But this is stronger out of a pan. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. New favorite violet. Okay, then we have Royal Blue Light, which is another, this is a convenience color. Wait. So I'm gonna quickly make up a little swatch card for this. Yeah, so this morning I was in my house upside down looking for the stamp, which of course I'll just find like packed away for something, but or probably what I'll end up doing is ordering a new one, and then the moment it arrives, I'll find the old one, but I guess having two doesn't hurt. Just have to remember where I got that stamp from. Can somebody remind me of the name of the manufacturer where I got my stamp? I don't need to brain because I outsource that. Royal Blue Light. So this is the color that like never really makes it into my palette. This would be useful if you're the sort of artist who has like a big palette, and you are really using more of like a coloring technique where you're just putting down one color, not mixing them so much. this will be my swatch binder, but it's not really likely to be the sort of thing that I can really think of a great use for in my own work. I don't really, do like very pastel convenience colors. I just mix them by adding water or white if I must.
I think it's about your stamp. Is it waffle flower?
It is waffle flower. Thank you. Pigment number, and this is another one of those like, okay, now let's fill in 3 different, at least it's 3. There are a few from the original Aquarius release where there's like 4 or 5 different pigments in one paint, which just seems excessive to me. Like, why do you need this many different things to make one paint? There's no way you're going to be able to see them all.
I don't know if you've ever heard of the game Factorio, but Gabor is apparently addicted to it.
I have heard of it. I can see why he's addicted to it.
He closed it just for the streams.
Oh my goodness, I'm honored. Okay, so then yeah, so this is really, really, like, you can see it in the pan. It's very, oops, sorry. You can see in the pan, it's very, very light valued. 7 pigment black is so disruptive. Are we talking disruptive in the like tech industry sense of the word? Oh yeah. That's what I need. 7 pigments. Mix any 7 pigments in the right quantities, you get something approaching black.
That says sounds like a martial artist attack.
Yeah, so this is like a sky blue. If you're doing like an illustrative style, you want like that pastel shade so that you have it nice and even rather than just watering down a more like a deeper shade. So again, this is not something that would really come into my watercolor palette ever, but it's useful for someone else. It's a very nice light blue if you want those convenience pastels. The next one is interesting, and it's one of these like just for pigment nerds sort of things. Who's in the background? Oh, sorry, I guess you missed the very beginning of the stream. I have a new assistant, Destiny. So Destiny is going to be working with me at the studio, doing order fulfillment and organizing for me and keeping me on track. And also she's helping me at home with getting my life in order. Not yet, because it's difficult to open up. My home life is chaos. But yeah. So we'll do a Trash Black Wonderful is such a good name. And a 20 pigment white. 20 pigment white. Well, titanium, zinc, lead, chalk. I'm at 4. some optical brighteners in there. We can call those a pigment. Mica. It could be a glimmery white. I think the 7 pigment one is a Daniel Smith special, because of course it is. Who else do we like picking on? As it turns out, I can miss 3 years and nothing's changed. It's like some specific famous artist. They did a series of things where they released like Jane's Gray, which is Jane Blundell's mix of burnt sienna and ultramarine. But they also released some artists' custom black, which I'm sure in his case, all that he's doing, but they custom mixed it for him so you can get it. And it has, well, it has a great many pigments. Interestingly, when I looked at the pigment list, it was not quite the same as the pigment list for the other paints in his palette, so it didn't totally make sense to me. Why? Like it would have almost made sense if it was like, this is how you mix a black from all of the other pigments. Whatever. It was weird. And I'm not sure if this was right before or right after the Primatech drama, but either way, it all just seemed a little bit unnecessary. You can mix black. You can mix.
Is it that mix be changed a couple centuries?
Oh, as Jane's Gray, and huge fan of their whole brand ambassador program. That ambassador program by, well, at least decades, at least decade. And she does use Daniel Smith paints, or at least it's interesting. She's kept rather quiet about, sorry, this is Lapis by Roman Szmal Aquarius. It has, maybe I should have written this stuff down before closing it. It's limited edition too.
Erica says hello.
Hello. They've listed this as not applicable pigment, which is interesting. I'm gonna accept that. Some pigment suppliers will list lapis lazuli as PB29 ultramarine because it is the original source of ultramarine. Ultramarine is just synthetically produced now, so we can get much brighter ultramarine, much cheaper. This is so different from ultramarine that it kind of makes sense to me that you wouldn't just put it in with like, oh, well, here's all your ultramarines, and then here's this thing that's completely different. As you can see, it's much lighter. It is darker valued than I kind of expected from the swatch at the front, and just it being well, an expensive specialty pigment. They tend to be pretty light valued. And this is like, it's definitely not nearly as bright as any ultramarine you're likely to get. It does have that sort of milkiness to the top, which I'm beginning to think might just be a binder separation. Like maybe I just need to do another pass with these to get to how the rest of the pan behaves. Common enough with these hand poured pans. Oh, we don't list the pigments of any of our products because everything's proprietary. Yes, well, I don't like that. I don't like that. There are things that Roman Szmal has released without pigment information. He's always been upfront when I've asked him. Like Aquarius Orange was released without, I don't know if it's been updated now, but it was released without pigment number. It's P071. But P071, at least at the time, I haven't checked in years. I assume at this point it is now officially assigned. But both Winsor Newton initially released P071 as Desert Orange. And they called it P071. Then they re-released it like a year later as Transparent Orange, so no longer the limited edition, but they left pigment not assigned because officially the pigment had not been assigned yet. It was known that it was probably going to be P071, but it was an experimental pigment.
P071 says Pablo, and someone's asking if you're talking about Aquarius Orange.
Yes, exactly. So Aquarius Orange, then Roman Szmal released that. When he sent it to me, I asked him, like, is this looks a lot like P071. Or sorry, P0107. Yes, sorry. P071 is the similar one. P071 is much older. P071 is Transparent Orange from Schminke and Daniel Smith and Core and whatever. P0107. Yes, sorry. P0107. And yeah, Roman Szmal is super upfront about, yes, it's the same pigment, but it's not officially assigned, so I'm not going to put it down. He also feels like a lot of the earth colors, like if he's got a specific source for it, where it's like it's tied to a location, that's more informative than something like PBR7 versus PY43. So he puts that down, but he's a chemist by training. If you ask him about his pigments and his light fastness testing and his everything, he is always happy to discuss that. And you know, he'll share when he says, okay, well, you know, we're testing in the window of our factory to confirm what the manufacturer light fastness is, and we're working with the university to get better light fastness tests, but you know, there are all these downsides. Like he'll discuss that openly. You don't get all that information in the label, but it's a breath of fresh air compared to some other companies who make big noise about trade secrets. And when I say other companies, yes, I do mean Daniel Smith, but also it annoys me no end that Winsor Newton has like the cadmium-free cadmiums that they refuse to disclose what they're made of. Like, of course, they're azo pigments with whatever, but just say it. It's not like they made up some new pigment, right? Like, okay, there's only so many yellows on the market, so. So you're using some kind of azo yellow, presumably? But like, why would I not buy the azo yellow for half the price? Oh, because that then we couldn't make money off of you the same way. Well, great. Very excited about this turquoise shade phthalo blue. It is PB 15:4, so it is a PB 15. Yes, yes. All right. All right. This definitely makes the cut. And it's definitely very transparent, very bright, like very saturated. But also look at that. Oh, I'm getting some clumping here. So that is something to watch out for. Now I am using just, I think, the building water here, which is very, very, very limey. So that'll exaggerate any clumping. That's just a hazard of where I don't like it when, say, PG7 is called Viridian. I don't like a lot of the like really creative naming things. Like I understand some amount of like Gamboge, New Gamboge hue, whatever. It drives me a little bit batty when people come up with like, especially when it's contradictory. Like things named mineral violet. I'm sorry, when I hear mineral violet, I'm thinking manganese or maybe some other kind of mineral, and then you go and find that it's a dioxazine mix. Like, where's the mineral? Okay, this is Urban Gray. So this is another mix. Yes, one of the many things I appreciate about Roman Szmal is the relatively low amount of misleading naming that happens. Like mostly the names are just like an accurate description of what's inside. And then you get like a few creative names, but then the creative names are names for mixes mostly. Okay. Oh, so this is a mix of this thing that I would use just by taking my palette and going, and then painting with that. I don't really see the point of having a separate pan for that, but for which we are very grateful, because then there would not be very many paints. It's only depending on my business, and I don't even buy these, they just get sent to me. PY150, it does however have PY150. I do appreciate all the PY150 mixes in this lineup. Just on principle. Sorry, what did Ev have to say? Roman 15.4 looks like a red shade version. That is misleading. That is the camera and light playing tricks on you. It is very, very, very turquoise in person. I will potentially film this as an edited video with better light than my actual swatch cards. If I find that energy in me. Although I also have just a huge number of to-do videos and videos that are like, I've got some footage for videos that I'd like to do. So I don't know how high that is on the priority list, but yeah, no, this is not red at all. It just looks like that in the video because of not great light. Okay, next, another gray tone. Which one is this? Velvet Black. So Velvet Black is PR 264 and PG7. So that is a 2-pigment black mix, a red and a green, which if you want a pure black, red and green is a great place to start. So I'm excited to see how close to black this brown. Maybe if I try, like, no, that just looks even bluer, huh? Like even redder. I promise you, it is not. That is cameras playing tricks on you. It is quite turquoisey. Like it's more turquoisey than your average like PB 15.3. It is pretty close to a PB 17, that PB 15.4, or if you've had the joy of experiencing a true manganese blue, it is maybe a tiny bit more reddish than a manganese blue, and obviously non-granulating, although there is some texture showing up for me. I wouldn't worry too much about the texture showing up for me because I have the worst case scenario as far as water goes for showing granulation. So take that as you will. For my actual painting, I often use filtered, or actually at home we're going to be installing an RO system. I have on occasion even purchased distilled water.
Paolo says, I bought the box for an urban sketching class I will be taking if I have the courage to go.
Go! Urban sketchers are so friendly. Like, it's such a great community. It's like the least judgmental, most supportive groups you'll find anywhere. You'll get a huge range of different, not only skill levels, but also like interests and techniques and approaches. Everyone's just really happy to like share and look over like, oh, you focused on this thing. And I've done quite a bit of urban sketching with different groups, and like across the board, urban sketchers are wonderful. They're lovely. So here's my velvet black. Get some more of that water in there and get a nice dark. Oh yeah.
Jill said, you have to give my local people a try on the others.
Yes, do, and tell me how it goes. Urban sketchers are lovely. I started urban sketching several years ago, actually, when I started doing like painting, illustration work professionally. I wanted to still like keep up the interest in painting as a hobby. So I wanted something completely different from my studio work. And although I have now sold some urban sketch pieces, it's really valuable and it's really lovely. And there's just okay. I quite enjoy this velvet black. It is very black, very black. It's got like it's just like a dark, almost a violet maybe, bluish, like a Payne's gray, but very 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 black. Like it's you know, near perfect optical black. It's hard to tell what direction it skews. Maybe slightly blue or slightly violet, but oh, we've had so many thunderstorms this summer here. It's been really wild. Last year we had no rain all summer, which was weird and terrible. This year has definitely been better in that respect. Okay, so this is graphite, which I'm very excited about because I do sometimes like sketching, like drawing in graphite and adding some just a little bit of watercolor tone. Is the PR 264 separating from, I wouldn't say separating exactly, there's some texture there. I've mentioned this a few times in this stream to clarify what I'm talking about with, there's, so synthetic organics like PG7 and PR264 are very small particles for the most part, and they have a polarity to them. And so if your water has, well, water on its own is polar. It has a direction in the molecule, but it's minor. Stuff that gets mixed, that comes in our water, like calcium ions and iron ions can make that much more pronounced. So if you use groundwater, your tap water will have a lot more stuff in it. So the area that I'm in has some of the hardest water, just to say it's got the most calcium and iron and magnesium diluted into it in North America. And when you have water that's got all that stuff in it, it will tend to, even more than regular water, if you have pigments that have a polarity to them, that are charged on either side, they'll want to clump together. They're hydrophobic. They want to get away from the water. And that is even more intense with harder water in a lot of cases. And so if you have very highly tinting paints with these tiny hydrophobic particles, and they don't have enough binder covering each individual particle to keep them all separate. Oh my goodness. 8. I keep tucking this away. Hello.
I forgot the fabric. I need to do embroidery tonight.
Oh. Did you make it all the way home first and then had to?
Oh no, Jonathan came and collected me.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't too bad. Okay, have a good one.
Okay. Bye-bye. Sorry. Back to my pigments. End up with clumping. So it looks like granulation, but it's not granulation. It's just clumping. In this case, there is some texture, not the two pigments separating from each other. It's the two pigments seem to be about the same sort of qualities. They're clumping. So there's a texture, but it doesn't, the mass tone is not different from the field, from the tint. Okay, graphite. I'm excited about graphite because I do draw in graphite and then sometimes use watercolor with a graphite drawing. I've also used water-soluble graphite pencils. So graphite as a watercolor pigment seems like the sort of thing that could mix into that sort of approach. And I'm just gonna add some more water in here and then some more, see how it separates. And then in here, I'm gonna do the same thing all the way over here. And then but I have opinions. I am dog. I have opinions. Ember soon.
Dave says, I read that the graphite pigment granulates like crazy.
I think that depends on how it's ground, but I guess we'll see. It says it is non-granulating. In this case, I'm not seeing too much granulation. Again, a tiny texture, but with my water, you're going to see texture in almost everything. So. And so if I'm trying to paint something really smooth in the studio, then I might choose to paint with distilled water or with filtered water. For these swatches, I actually like using the local water because it gives me an idea of what the paint is likely to do. So you'll have like Schminke paints are very unlikely to do these sort of textural things that you're seeing in some of these. So if I want a really, really smooth finish, Schminke, Holbein, prioritize avoiding that. Roman Szmal does not, but I don't so much want to avoid it as I find in some cases it's so pronounced that it's distracting. So like I find some of the grams are unusable because they just clump away. Like they don't even, you can't really paint with some of the grams in my water. Ember, what? Are we not paying enough attention to dogs? You need scritches behind your ears. Ember down. Down. Settle. Good girl. 2 more of the like new release paints, and then I will the quinacridone magenta intense. I actually don't have it's what the pigment is here, so I'll have to ask him. I suspect that it's just a different PR. My goodness. It's not like this is in every single one of my palettes or anything. The quinacridone magenta that I always use. Whatever. I suspect that it is not so much a unique pigment as just a different formulation of the same pigment. It will come to me. Or it'll come to someone else who will remind me of what I keep in my palettes. PBR 25. So PBR 25 is a fun little pigment.
Dave said, do you know what happened to BR48? It was listed last week on Jackson's within this new color set, then removed.
PBR 48?
Yes. Or just, he said BR48.
Brown 48. Are we talking brown 48 or red 48? I don't know why I am asking that, because I actually do not know. Either way, no clue. I didn't know anything about it. Brown. Anyone know anything about brown 48? In general, or as applied to this specifically? Okay, I'm gonna flip this around so you can see the pan as I'm looking in here. So this is, as always, a very reddish sort of brown. It tends to be quite transparent. This one's showing a lot of texture for me. Again, this is more a hazard of my water than a comment on the paint, as most paints will. Oh, sorry, there's 24 colors and I've got 21, including one that's not on the new release list. Cool. I have no idea. Have to look into that. I know that in some cases he's experimented with colors and then he's found out after the fact that like a color that he a sample amount of he can't get in a consistently larger order. So he has had a number of like sample type paints that he's sent out to various people or started promoting that don't pan out. For example, interested in producing thioindigo. There are some people who were really enthusiastic about that. It's not available. He did get his hands on some, because you can always get your hands on some, but it turned out that his source did not have enough to keep producing more. So although initially it was going to be part of the line, it didn't pan out that way. So I don't know. Could be something like that. Could be that it's just going to come out later, that they're still in production and they wanted to release the other ones first. I don't know. I received these. I got sent these before he was, before there was anything about any of these paints, I believe, other than there had been some talk of the violet. But I don't think I've seen any of the other ones on his page or media or anything until the day after I received them. So, and at that point, I guess I didn't really check super closely whether the full release, like the names, just like, oh, okay, they are released, because I had in the past, I was keeping a spreadsheet of all of the pigments used by different brands, which I've largely abandoned. It's still available if you want to find it, but I haven't updated it because other people, Otto, Kano, for instance, are doing the same thing, only much better. And I do not feel the need to duplicate work. So, yeah.
Dan is asking, so this is the unlabeled one.
No, so right now I am working on the natural umber reddish, which is very much a labeled thing. And then next I'll do the unlabeled one. Just and this is and PBR7. There we go. Mastone.
Dan says, I'd like to
Ooh.
buy some artist paints, but I don't need any more paint.
Whereas I need so much more paint. You have no idea. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm drowning in paint. But they are really nice paints. Have you tried them at all, Dan? Like, have you tried any of the Roman Szmal paints? Or I'm assuming you must have. If you've literally not tried any of them at all, I can send you a set. Okay, and then this is, I'm going to tuck this one in underneath here. And then now I'm going to do, there's one unlabeled one. I mean, it's labeled quinacridone magenta just on the foil, but it doesn't have a painted label because it's not part of the release. It's just experimental paint, I guess. I would buy a load of Roman Szmal when the tubes come out. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, that's going to be very dangerous for me. Because that is the only thing right now that's keeping me from just being brand loyal. I'm trying to think if there's any paint now that I wouldn't swap for Roman Szmal if it was available in tubes.
Dan says they are. Katie Hannah sent me some a few years ago. They are very nice, but I don't need any more paint. I don't use what I have.
Well, I have a similar issue of like I've purchased a lot of paint for the purposes of like, oh, that's interesting. Never heard of that pigment before. And then the majority of it, well, it just hangs there. Because as it turns out, like most of my painting, I'm just not that creative of like using the weird pigments day to day. I just choose a few I like and keep using those. So there was no other information here. So I'm just going to leave that there.
Dan said, I have no brand loyalty. I can find the same color in a different brand that's nicer and cheaper. I'll have it.
So this is the thing. So I've had no loyalty through ever. My palettes are a mix of everything. I do prefer to work from tubes. Generally, like I prefer to buy tubes. Oh, this is gorgeous. Oh my goodness. Oh, ho, 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 ho. This is the prettiest magenta I've ever seen. I needed it on my palettes. Oh my goodness. This is the experimental one. Crap. I can't just stock up. Roman, please. Can you send me your entire stash of this?
Box of paint said that's what I was expecting raspberry to look like.
Oh, this is so pretty. Oh my goodness. It's like raspberry juice. Only like a little bit more violet toned, I guess, but it's so bright, like in oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I like it so much. Let's see it dry. I think it's PR 122, but it is not labeled. Like it's an experimental paint, so it just had the foil package. This is all the information I got. So I can email him and ask, and presumably he'll tell me. But my guess would be PR 122, but you know, for all I know, it's something else entirely. It's like a blackberry color. Yeah, it's like, it's really, really bright pink in tint, and then it gets darker. It's like really deep. Oh, I like it so much. All right, so there's some highlights here for sure. I really like the Azo Yellow. I would consider it if I was building a beginner palette as the main yellow instead of PY 150. It's not going to replace PY. That's obviously. There's some very nice Parallenes here. Okay, I'm about to end this anyway, but it was nice to hear you. It's nice to see you. Bye, everyone. Hi, Mikey. Yeah, so some highlights. I really like a couple of these Parallenes. These two are very similar, but I do like them. The Azo Yellow and the New Gamboge Hue are pretty nice. This Strontium Violet is a real winner. The Aquarius Violet is a novelty, but it's such a pretty novelty. Phthalo Blue, Graphite. I actually really, really like this Natural Umbered Reddish. Like it's an earth tone. Yeah. And this Quin Magenta Intense. As it's drying, it's just staying just as intense, and I love it. Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah, so there's a link to my Discord down in the description. If you want to continue a discussion over there, hit that Discord link. Also Patreon and my shop. And I will be back next week. I'll be streaming every Friday. Not quite sure what I'm doing next Friday, but I'll be streaming. And I'll be posting some videos coming up soon too. Bye-bye.